Welcome everyone to another CTC software webinar. My name is Chris Berkshire, Director of Technical Services here at CTC, and today we are going to go over a comprehensive introduction into Schedule Excel from the BIM project suite. Before we begin though, I want to encourage all of you to ask questions throughout the webinar. I will do my best to answer them as we go. And we'll certainly make sure to take some time at the end to answer all of them if I do not catch them all while we're going. Just go ahead and use the questions panel in the little toolbar there. And as always, this is also being recorded and will be made available on our YouTube channel when shortly after the presentation is complete. I would guess sometime either later today or tomorrow. It'll be available and everyone should get an email with a link to go and watch it at your convenience. So with that, let's go ahead and just get started. So as many of you know, there is not a good way in Revit natively to bring data from an Excel file into our project. Without, that's just native workflow. There just isn't a good way. If you don't have any extra plugins, the one way you can do it is to link this information, your spreadsheets, into an AutoCAD drawing as an OLE object and have it generate a table of your information, which is nice. There's a little kind of bidirectional link or a link there, right? So you can refresh it at any time, but then you have to go ahead and link that CAD drawing into Revit. So now we've got this extra middleman getting in the way. And now we're linking AutoCAD into our Revit drawings when we're, at least in my opinion, trying to avoid doing that if possible. So in this webinar today, I'm going to show you a tool, Schedule Excel, that will allow you to do that, whether it's a schedule view or a drafting view. So a couple of things we're going to go over today is just where the tool is and how to navigate around in the interface a bit. Go ahead and bring in a couple of different schedule views, or spreadsheets into either a schedule view or a drafting view, kind of show you the different options and what the outcomes are, how to go ahead and maintain some updates and where to go to refresh everything, and then give you an idea where you can get your hands on it if you don't already have a copy. I do not like PowerPoints. It's always best and easiest for me to just kind of show you, do some hands-on. So here we go. All right. So our tool is located here on the CTC Productivity tab. We've got our BIM project suite. You see we've got a number of other tools here, but we're focusing on the green guys today. Schedule Excel is right here. It's the darker shaded color apps. We have some lighter shaded ones, which are free tools. So if you go ahead and download a trial, you'll always have this at your disposal. Free is free. You'll get them forever until you remove them. Schedule Excel and the darker shaded tools here are licensed tools, and you will have to go ahead and purchase a copy to maintain your use of this. So in Schedule Excel, there's not a lot here, at least on the surface, right? This window here that you see presents you a list of all of the Excel files that we have currently referenced into our Revit files. Whether it was a schedule view or a drafting view, it doesn't matter. The list will show here, and you'll get an idea of what the file is, where it's sourced from, if it fell onto a particular work set, and if it's up to date. And if it's not up to date, we can update it from here as well. So, and by up to date, I mean up to date in the Revit file. The Excel file is still king. It will always be up to date, hopefully. And that will be the one that we reference into our projects. So I'm just going to go ahead and get going. So the way this works is you hit the add button, go find the Excel file you want to use. So here you'll be presented with our preview window, and you'll be able to see exactly what the spreadsheet's going to look like from Excel so that you know what to expect. So I'm going to go ahead and hit open and browse for the spreadsheet that I want to work with here. So I'm pretty sure I moved it. this is an example of what I'm bringing in. So I've got this workbook, and I've got a number of different tabs in here that I want to reference into my spreadsheet here. So not the empty one. So I want to go ahead and grab this guy, which is saved right where it belongs. All right, so let's go, right window. Let's go get it. So now let's go to my here and here. There we go. And here it is. So now here's what I can expect. So this is an exact copy of the spreadsheet. Now I've got a number of different tabs here, and you have some options of what you bring in when you bring it in, right? So in my case, I've got multiple spreadsheets in or tabs in the same workbook, and I can either bring in just the active tab or worksheet, or I can do multiple worksheets or ranges and start checking those boxes and bring in as many or as I want. So a lot of our mechanical or electrical users have Excel spreadsheets that have, a dozen or more tabs in it for any given project. And you can turn around and just bring the whole thing in, okay? I'm gonna start with just the one. Go back up to the top. I'm just gonna start with this one here. And here's my options for creating a schedule view or a drafting view. And switch back to the one. But before I do that, there's some graphic options that we need to set so that we know we can match up what Excel is doing specifically. Now, as you can tell in this spreadsheet, there's some very significant formatting going on here. I've got cells are various sizes. Some things are merged, some things are not. Got graphic overrides here and there, and some cell fills. So we want to make sure that we get all that information in here. So if you click graphic options, there's a number of things that we can specify to make sure that this comes in as close as possible to what it looks like in Excel. So for my cell height and my cell width, I have a series of options here to either preserve the cell height and width or do an auto fit and specify what a multiplier would be, which effectively takes whatever the font size is and puts a multiplier towards it, and that's how much bigger the text box will be than the font itself. With such heavy formatting like you see behind us here, this isn't going to work out very well. So I'm not going to do that with this one. And if I've got a bunch of merged cells with text wrapping in there, we have this height correction setting in here. And that's something that you'll want to play with to make sure you get the look right. Sometimes you won't need it, and sometimes you will. It all just depends on the formatting, 100%. And then what you're hoping to get out of it. So I'm going to leave both of mine at preserve for this exercise. So depending on the view type that I make, to make it easy to find, we can put prefix the name with something. I like leaving it the default at SXL because then I know Schedule Excel is the tool that created this, and then I know basically not to touch it. Kind of what this indicator is for. And I'll explain that a little bit more once we get it into the project. If the schedule if this list is long, I can break it into multiple tables so that I'll get multiple schedules and we can stack them along in the line. Good for material ID lists where you've got hundreds of different materials mapped out, or maybe a door hardware ID schedule. We have the ability to specify a schedule view template. So if you've got view templates or drafting view templates for that matter. So if you do have a view template in your project that specifies specific text fonts and styles at a certain height, we can apply those. If you've got certain appearance properties that you want to go ahead and map in, we can do that as well with additional formatting. You can specify those here or not. It's entirely up to you if you guys use templates for your views or if you don't. If you don't like the font that was used in Revit, you can certainly try to overwrite it here with one of the styles in your project, or with any other font that's held onto by Windows, and for Revit for that matter. True type fonts are what Revit uses naturally. Again, heavy duty formatting here, so I'm not going to do any overwriting. But then we have line work options. So you can see I do have some cell borders in here. So I can either bring it all in or just the cell borders without an override. So it kind of depends on how it's been laid out, right? If it is truly cell borders, that's what you should set. If you want to go ahead and make it closely mimic a schedule in Revit, maybe it's not a bad idea to do it as grid lines and specify what styles you want for the border and the header and the grids, and if you want those grids in your title and in your headers. So thankfully, it's pretty easy, so we can try multiple different ways here. So I'm going to try with cell borders and no override, see what happens. Then, again, depending on the file that you're bringing in, you have the option to specify spreadsheet rows for the title and your headers. In my case, I don't have any specific row laid out for a title or a header, so I am going to set mine to none. If I did, I could check these two radial buttons and specify what rows the title and headers are in. And then it will use that. And that really comes in handy, especially if you have to break it into multiple tables, because now spreadsheet, in this case, row 1 and 2, will be the header and title across every single schedule. But I don't have those in this one. Mine's intended to come in as one big view. Last but not least are these 4 checkboxes down here at the bottom. And by default, Schedule Excel is looking for the print area of the view. If you don't have a print area defined, it's going to take the whole spreadsheet in. So we strongly suggest you define print areas in your spreadsheets, in those tabs, so that you only get what you need. And that also then allows you to cut off areas that are, used for notes or have additional pieces of information that are not pertinent to the project. Then we have font colors and background cell backgrounds. And if there's any additional conditional formatting for, table styles and all that good looking stuff, we have that checkbox here as well. So a lot of different extra graphic options if necessary. I'm happy with this. I just want to see how this turns out right now. So I'm going to hit OK. The view name will always default to whatever the tab name is. So I'm going to just quickly update mine to be today's date and hit OK. Now you'll get a little processing window off to the, somewhere in there, and it'll do it. So, and then this is what I got. So I did not have, so what you'll end up with are either exactly what you had, or if it's really heavily formatted, you'll notice that maybe some things got cut off. Okay, so if I jump back into my workbook here, we can just kind of side by side compare it here. We do have some things missing. So what I've got here now are some tabs and some cells that didn't fill out properly. And thankfully, though, it is a fairly easy fix, and I'll show you how that works. What you need to do is make sure that these cells are formatted. It's the most important thing that you can do with any spreadsheet that you're bringing in. It's either the cell size fits the text, regardless of what you typed in, or in a case like this, you got to make sure everything's merged appropriately. If you don't do that, text will disappear. Okay, so I'm going to quickly run through here and merge a couple of these cells just like so that we can see how it's working. And I'm just going to do a few, and then I'm going to change my graphic options here a little bit as well, because I do kind of like these grid lines that pop in and out of here that did not show up in my spreadsheet. So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to quickly merge a couple more of these while we're going. and then save the file. So we'll stop there. I'm going to hit save. Great. Get it out of the way. Now, when I come back here, with the file saved, what ought to happen, and we'll go ahead and close that and open it back up again. If someone's been editing that Excel file, the status will change here. Okay, so now Revit knows, or Schedule Excel knows, that file's out of date. The date modified is different than the time or the date modified in Revit, or the updated date. So I can just simply hit update. Or if I've got multiple spreadsheets loaded in, I can hit update all if they are all out of date. In this case, I just have the one, so I'm going to go ahead and hit update so we can see that change real quick. And just by hitting update, now you can see a lot of stuff started to come into play and is easier to see now. So formatting is extremely important with Schedule Excel. Again, it's going to do exactly what you tell it to do. And if you didn't tell Excel to do the formatting, the spreadsheet gear tool that we use as built inside the preview area, it's not going to match exactly. So, but I do want to change some of my graphic options here. So I'm going to go back in here and hit edit. We're going to jump back into my graphic options, and I am going to go ahead and bring in those additional grid lines here. So I want the border and the header and the grid. And then I can choose which line style in Revit that I want to use. So for right now, I'm just going to make sure that those are checked, hit OK to see what my resulting view is going to be. It's not going to be anything. Oh, wait, it's still thinking. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. Okay, so I do have to choose a line style here, and that's fine. So we'll choose your line style, and I'll just do detail 1 across the board. Do that, we'll do that, let it think, it's up to date, and there you have it. So if I had a line style that was light gray that matched closer to what I had in Excel, then that's exactly what I would get here. Okay, so now I'm going to take another step and I'm going to add another one in. We're going to load up a couple more here because there's a couple of different examples, and you can always, again, we can load it from the same from the same Excel file. Doesn't matter. This one's got some additional formatting in here as well, with some colored cells and other line work options in here. I'm going to bring this sheet in, but this time I'm going to do it as a drafting view and hope that my format, that I picked up everything, and I hope I caught out everything. So, so we're going to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go there. We're going to hit my graphic options here real quick. Everything looks good to me. And actually, if I have a different color here, I'm going to try to grab it. I don't think I do, though. So it is what it is. I'll leave it at, actually, let's change this one to be detail 3, just to have some difference there. So that's what I'm going to do. And then hit OK. And hit OK again. And it's doing its thinking. Wish it would just show up over there, but it's processing. It's telling me exactly how much area it's bringing in. And in this case, it's bringing in 62 columns and 45 rows of information. There is a tiny little dialog box that's the processing window. And for whatever reason today, it wants to show up on my other screen. So it's not appearing here, but you can tell Revit's thinking because its progress bars chugging along. So this file is a little bit more unique because it actually has calculations being run inside of some of these cells. And so if you do have, quote unquote, smart worksheets put together that do have formulas to create some of these calculations similar to what I'm showing here in my screen, it will maintain those as long as they aren't, as long as they're of the supported formulas and supported Excel functions, it'll work. They'll come in. And by supported, I mean they have to have been around a while, and the utility that we use for that preview window, that tool needs to be able to support them. And if for whatever reason it's not working for you, reach out to us and we can help you get that squared away. So this is exactly what I got. So because I don't have that light gray pen style created in here, everything's kind of popping out a little bit more than I would like normally. But now that gives me the opportunity to come in here and set things up. Now, because I did a drafting view this time, it went through and recreated that in a drafting view. Here it is, with a bunch of detail lines and little text boxes everywhere. So there's a lot going on here in this particular view. And if you were to come through here and make some edits, you're going to get a notification like this, whether you're in the drafting view or you're in the schedule view. And it'll tell you, hey, this is just the view you just modified has been created automatically by Schedule Excel. So what will happen is the next time I update this view, I'm going to lose all these changes, right? So it's going to, and it'll tell you what's been modified. So you see, I just deleted all that because it was, just kind of dead space. If I were to come, oops, I closed my workbook. So if I were to come back to this spreadsheet here and make a change to that tab, like here, wrong date. So if I were to pop in here and change this date to today, oops, and then save the file, close it, open Schedule Excel, it'll know, hey, your files are out of date. And one of them, it even tells you that it was modified by a user at some point. So this means that it was edited by user in Revit. So now I can hit update. I can select one and hit update, or flat out hit update all. And by hitting update on the sheet that was modified by a user, it's going to reset that. And all of those detail lines are now back. So this is where formatting my spreadsheet will come in a little bit, will come into play. And I will want to make sure that I am using cell borders everywhere instead of letting Revit create the lines for me, because I can control what the cell borders are in Excel and then just let the process do its job. And I don't have to worry about trying to delete something and then remembering to delete it before print date, because likely it came back after an update. So things to keep in mind as you are working inside of Schedule Excel. Alrighty. So this is just about done. Now, so one thing I want to point out to you guys is we do have this auto update checkbox here. So with this box checked, it will automatically update the file, assuming they're outdated, each and every time you open that project for the first time. It's a lot like Revit, and it's reloading of a link. If the link is out of date, and when you open it, it's going to reload latest automatically as you're opening that local, as you're creating a new local, right? It's always checking the links to see if they need to be updated. That's what's happening here with Schedule Excel too. It'll run while you're opening it and make sure that your spreadsheets and then the resulting views are up to date, so that you don't have to worry about that. And this is checked and enabled by default. If you don't want it to auto update, just simply uncheck the box and it won't anymore. So, and you can see my lines are all back. The date changed, which is great, but all those detail lines are back. So manipulating cell borders is going to be really handy at this point. A couple more things I want to point out to you is, say we're working on projects with other people in our office, right? And with times being what they are, a lot of us aren't always in the office and aren't always maintaining our VPN connection, and sometimes we don't use it very often. We're using BIM 360 and maybe the desktop connector, and then maybe or maybe something like Dropbox or OneDrive to share with other firms. And we've set up special shared directories and things like that. We can use that too. So instead of always browsing to the network or browsing to a location that everyone in your firm has access to, we can now browse to places like files on your OneDrive or files on BIM 360. So if I got a nice example here where I've got a couple of different Excel files at my disposal, and if I grab this one and hit open, it will eventually open, but what will happen here is it's going to, Schedule Excel is going to understand that because the file is in my username or attached to my username, that this needs to be, that this is now a shared document, and we've got it set up so that other people can still use that, especially if it's shared with them as well to effectively this project, right? If they have access to this shared location, they'll be able to see the file, they'll be able to make changes to the Excel file, and they'll be able to update its instance here in Revit from Schedule Excel. So here I've got my unit summary. This is exactly what I wanted to see. So I'm just going to go ahead and create another schedule view and hit OK, as is. And then it'll tell you where it came from. Came from OneDrive. Came from BIM 360 or Desktop Connector, right? So it's a nice little feature add that we incorporated, and now we get exactly what we want. So, and I didn't have my print area defined properly in this spreadsheet. So at one point, and so what this means here, I'm actually kind of glad this happened. What this means here is that there's no print area defined, and that one of these cells down here at the bottom got hit by something at one point. There's maybe some legacy formatting inside of one of these cells, and that's why it's extending down as far as it is. So what I need to do now is open up that spreadsheet, adjust my print area to just be what I need it to be, and then I can go ahead and finish it up. So if I open that file directly now, I can grab this specific area, and maybe a little more if you want, and define that print range, which I believe is here in set print area. There it is. Go ahead and save it now. And there you go, OneDrive automatically saving for me. What a deal. So it's all set. It's synced up, ready to go. I'll pop back into Revit. And we will close and reopen Schedule Excel to force the update a little quicker. Sees that it's out of date. Update it. And it should cut all those blank cells off the bottom now. Once it's done loading up. And then just like any other view and any other schedule view, we can bring these onto our sheets. I can bundle it up with everything else, and now it'll print like it's part of the job, like it's a part of the project. And I'm going to get my ribbon out of the way here. And so if I go back to one of my sheets, just to tie it all together, and we'll go to this sheet, grab my unit summary, place it on the sheet, and there you have it. And because it's a schedule, as you know, put it on as many sheets as you want. The drafting view, a little bit different. You're stuck with the sheet that you put it on, but that's okay. Maybe that's the idea. And I must have modified that one just slightly, but there you have it. So as you guys can see, Schedule Excel, really great, powerful tool that allows us to bring Excel spreadsheets and Excel information into a view inside of our Revit projects, specifically so that we can incorporate that data for our document sets. All right, and that officially concludes my demo for today. I want to thank you all for joining me. We really appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you guys next week. Take care, everybody. Have a nice day.